It's time for Reason.
Why would we give the ability for the Supreme Court to come back and say it's not adequate enough and be able to consume as much of the budget as they possibly want to for education, and then for everybody else to get the scraps and the leftovers? Why have we not focused on the Kansas Supreme Court's constitutional amendment to limit the power of the Supreme Court? Why is that not the number one priority and the only priority that we've had when it comes to educational finance?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, out of the Big Talker KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610, and across the entire Mid-American Network. What's happening? Happy Tuesday. Happy hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. We are living the dream, having more fun than what we should be on a daily basis. Welcome in. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, and it's an honor to have you along today. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. We have a lot to get to today, a lot to talk about, both on the national front and on the local front. Regionally here in the state of Kansas as well. Between the governor's race, we do have a candidate jumping on the show with us today in the 8 a.m. hour. There was a panel discussion and a public forum that happened yesterday at Kansas University with a couple of the Democrats and a Republican candidate. And we'll get him back on the show as well to talk a little bit. But I find it interesting that one of the candidates enjoys going more on the public forums with Democrats than they do going onto a debate stage with the Republicans. And I understand the sentiment of what he's been trying to do of saying that the Republican Party shouldn't have rules when it comes to what they're allowed to discuss and debate and so on and so forth. And he hasn't signed on to the rules of the Republican Party, but was the only Republican, so I guess I give him credit on that front, of going up and facing many Democrats on the public forum yesterday at Kansas University. So we'll talk about that in just a minute, but I have to laugh. I love starting off the morning with a very lighthearted, fun story. And as we're watching this caravan and the asylum seekers and all these illegal individuals trying to come across the border and trying to you've been hearing they say they're trying to come in legally. If that's the case, well, then all the power to them. If they're trying to come in legally, whether we actually accept all of them, I really hope not. Because just because you show up to our border and knock does not mean that you actually allow them to come in. If you have an individual knocking on your door at home and they're saying, hey, can I come into your home? I really need some sanctuary for a minute. I really need to just come in for a minute. Do you always just let them in? You just let them in all the time? Oh, okay. You know what? At least you knocked and asked. I guess it is better than if you just actually broke a window and actually tried to climb through the door or climb through the window. But even because you just knocked and asked, does that necessarily mean that you just let anybody into your home? Not necessarily. So do we do the process? Do we actually count the numbers? I know that we have, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to asylum seeking, when it comes to the sanctuary that we allow for some individuals to come into the nation, that we do it by numbers, and we allow an X amount of people from each country in each year. And just because you show up to our doorstep does not necessarily mean that you're going to be allowed into the nation. But I have to find it extremely funny and ironic. First off, I was watching the video on CNN. If you watch CNN or if you're on their website, they were doing the breaking news. The migrants arrive at U.S. border expected to seek asylum. And it's the reporter right by the beach, as on one side, and there's a fence. There's some type of wall. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a steady or sturdy wall, but it's a wall nonetheless. It's almost like the thin aluminum siding that you would put on the side of a barn or something. It's really not that big, but it's on the beach, and it goes through the sand and it goes into the water. And that is our wall. That is the wall that we have at that location. And I'm assuming this is near San Diego or someplace. I don't know where this is, but where the wall is, or where close to the wall is. But on one side, there are the protesters with the signs and ralliers trying to encourage these individuals to come into the nation. And on the other side are a bunch of asylum seekers looking for this. And the headline is, of course, DOJ charges 11 possible caravan members with illegally entering the United States, which we've been hearing from the mainstream media that everybody that's coming in as an asylum seeker or sitting there by the wall has gone to the different embassy areas or the different entrance areas with border security and turned themselves in and said that we want to be an asylum seeker and we're trying to come into the country legally. But that's not necessarily the case. Out of 100 people, 11 possible caravan members who entered illegal. That would be 11%. That would be a very large percentage-wise if there's close to 100 people. That would be a decent population percentage-wise of who's coming in illegally. That's the first part, is that we're being lied to by the media. Shocker. I know, right? Big shocker. The other part of this is that yesterday we received a phone call, and I had to laugh about it. We had a little sparring back and forth, a little discussion and dialogue and debate, and I thought it was quite entertaining. And it was an individual who had made the comment that when Donald Trump became president, that he had tried to, quote-unquote, seek asylum in Brazil, and that he's gone to Brazil many times, and it's fantastic. And I love the fact that we're going outside of the country and actually involved in other places. That's fantastic. But seeking asylum outside of the United States because Donald Trump is a big meanie head and because it was the emotional distress by the quote-unquote hate speech that Donald Trump preaches. And I had made the comment of why people were still trying to come into the United States, even illegally, to try and get here compared to where they were if this is such a terrible, horrible place. And the first comment that he had responded to was, well, if they only knew what he was like, then they would reconsider. Then kind of backtracked a little bit and made the comment of, well, no, this is still a place where you're safe to voice your opinion without being persecuted because of a drug lord or a dictator murdering you, which is very true. He's absolutely right. So it really shows that the progressives who are complaining about Donald Trump, who had threatened to leave the United States, who are the ones that hate the country right now, who apologize for the American flag, who apologize for who we are and the history of what the United States has been before, who are the ones who think that the United States is the most terrible place on the earth because they hate the flag, they cannot respect the flag, they cannot say that they love their country, they cannot say that they actually appreciate what we do here in the nation, they cannot say that they support the military, they cannot say that they love American traditionalism and American values, they cannot say any of this, are the same ones advocating for individuals to come into the country without any borders, without any type of process, that we should just have open borders to allow them to come here because we're a great place and they realize that this is the place that all immigrants should be, right? Isn't that a little bit of hypocritical? Isn't it just a little bit on the hypocrisy side of saying that this is a terrible, horrible place and I want to leave and I'm going to leave because I hate Donald Trump and I'm going to move and I'm going to become a refugee to another country because I cannot stand living under the fascist dictatorship, quote unquote, of President Donald Trump. Yet, how dare the Donald Trump not allow people to come in because they're leaving terrible conditions of a dictatorship country where they're murdering people in the streets, where the socialism has completely destroyed and ruined their country and they don't have any food or they don't have any medicine or they don't have a free voice and they get murdered for voicing their opinion or they get murdered for being gay or they get murdered for anything else that's happening in their country because it's such a terrible place and they're asylum seekers looking to become a refugee. And therefore, they need to come here because we're the sanctuary to allow them to voice their opinion and to be able to live freely. Isn't that just a little bit hypocritical? A little bit? But we're not hearing that, right? You would think that all of these protesters and ralliers trying to allow them to come into the country, the ones that despise Donald Trump for being the anti-immigrant president, which he's not, but to try and make that claim, wouldn't you think that they'd be on the border saying, wait a second, don't come here. Where you're coming from and the country that you left is way better than what we have here because it is so terrible here. We have a President Donald Trump that's just a terrible human being. You're not allowed to voice your opinion here. He's probably going to drone us or kill us. He's probably going to silence us and round us up. He's probably going to impose martial law and destroy all of us. And how dare that you actually try and come into this country? You should probably go back to where you came from. Because even though that you may have drug lords running your nation, even though you may have a dictator controlling you, even though you may not have a heck of a lot of food or medicine or freedom, it's way better than what we have here in the United States. Because now we are the victims. Can you see the hypocrisy in this conversation? But yet you're not going to hear that in the media. Yet you're not going to hear that from the progressives. Yet you're not going to hear that. And even though they may threaten to leave the nation, they may threaten to leave the country. They may hate Donald Trump with a passion. They realize what they actually have here. They know they're hypocritical. They know it. They know what they have here. They know the greatness of what this nation actually is. They know the potential that they actually have, and they know that they're allowed to whine and complain and throw a temper tantrum and throw a fit here in the United States, and that no one will persecute them in any way, shape, or form. And they know that if they went to another nation and tried to do the same thing to that government or to that country, that they would be either thrown in jail or possibly murdered. They know it. They know it. They know the greatness of what this nation actually is, but yet they refuse to actually admit it. So we sit back and we acknowledge it, and we listen to it, and we fight it, and we counter it, and we argue it and debate it, and we allow them to do their thing, and we allow them to play the victim. Why? Because we understand the progressives, the liberal progressives, really just like to play the victimhood. The liberal progressives, not a political party here, not a Republican Democrat thing, but progressives love victimization and love to be the victim, whether it's in the state, whether it's in the nation as a whole, whether it's in your community. You always can tell which individuals are more on the progressive side of the aisle when it comes to them, because you meet them and they're complaining about the entire world. They try and play the victimhood. Everybody's out to get them and how terrible things actually are, when they actually know that that's not the case. It even works in the workplace. Go to your office and you realize that you could be doing something for a heck of a lot less pay and a heck of a lot worse working conditions, and you'll still see someone sitting there complaining about how terrible it actually is there. Lots to get to today. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to hear from you today as well. What's on your mind? It's the Voice of Reason on a Tuesday.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Of Reason, 24 minutes past the hour. It is a Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Happy #Patriotic Tuesday to you. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. By the way, if you're in the Wichita area, I know that a lot of people try and tune into the AM and the FM. The AM currently having some technical issues and being off. The FM still working, 102.5 FM. If you're in the Wichita City area, you can tune into that. We'll get that fixed for you right away. If not, and you're trying to listen to the AM, you got the tune in, you got the Facebook Live, which, by the way, the Facebook Live is up and running. I appreciate it if you like it. Share it onto your page, leave a comment, ask a question. Let's get some activity generated on there. Let's build up the algorithm to get some people interested in spreading it around, because conservatives still having a hard time being able to expand their Facebook coverage on social media. So we have to do our own bidding there. 316-721-8255. If you're in the western part of the state, Garden City, Scott City, Guyman, Oklahoma, the surrounding area there, welcome aboard. Good morning to you. It's great to have you along. I love being able to be on in the first hour all across the board, because that just opens up the opportunities for us to discuss many different things. At the bottom of the hour, in about 6 minutes, we're going to play an interview we did yesterday. Jim Bohannon, nationally syndicated radio host. You can hear both on Garden City on KIUL, KYUL, and in KQAM. From 9 to midnight every night, Mr. Jim Bohannon. We love chatting with him. We sat down with him yesterday, and we'll play that interview in just a few minutes. Until then, I do want to hear from you. Talking about the caravan and the immigration and the immigrants, the asylum seekers trying to come up to the border and wanting to come into the country. Now, some coming in, wanting to come in legally, doing what they can, which we appreciate that. Now, does that necessarily guarantee you that you're going to come into the country? No, but that helps your chances, because you're at least trying to do the process legally. That's a good sign. That's a good thing. But there are some that are trying to come in illegally as well. But this is a discussion, as it's a huge discussion when it comes to the state of Kansas and our elected officials, and what we're going to stand for in the state as well with our governorship. As you know, Governor Brownback got a lot of heat as he was being attacked for signing the petition saying he wasn't going to allow refugees to come into the nation from Somalia because we were concerned about potential terrorist attacks, the proper vetting going in there, as many governors had done so at the time. We have tried to limit the amount to coming into the country. We've talked about the visa cards, the work visa, the student visas. We had the incident with the biology teacher up near Kansas City that was here, let his visa card expire a couple of times. And he had like 5 siblings. All of them got their naturalization papers. All of them became U.S. citizens. And he ended up just not doing that, still staying on a visa, letting it expire, and then complaining when he actually got deported and when he got in trouble because he let his visa expire and he was still here. Tragedy, right? Because he didn't follow the laws and didn't follow the process of what we were actually doing. So immigration's a huge discussion and debate in the state of Kansas and really the Mid-America region. It really is. We use a lot of immigrants for agriculture at times. And that's been a huge discussion on should we allow immigrants to come in more so for agricultural processes for the summertime? Should we make sure that they are vetted properly? I know that some farmers got in trouble for illegal immigrants working on the farms for the lower wages, and it's a huge discussion. Now, I am all for keeping wages and prices low when it comes to agriculture because agricultural industries already struggle enough, and I'm all for that. At the same time, we got to make sure individuals are legal. And that's why I'm all for actually trying to hire on students, college students, and saying that instead, before, let's try and hire on some of the young kids in the area that are going to college and want to make an extra buck. And first off, not only will they make an extra buck, but they'll also be able to learn a little bit of a work ethic that seems to be a little running on some fumes when it comes to the young generation having a nice, strong work ethic. We have some opportunity there, but this was brought up during a gubernatorial candidates discussion at Kansas University as 3 candidates for governor denounced the persistent hostility towards immigrants from former Governor Sam Brownback and Secretary of State Chris Kobach as immoral and economically destructive. I'm not sure what they're talking about. First off, what's immoral about saying that we need to follow the laws? And we welcome immigrants. We welcome legal immigrants. We just don't want illegal immigrants. Is there something immoral about that? No. We have something called the rule of law, and you should probably look it up before you start talking about what's immoral and not what's moral and not moral. Democratic candidate Josh Schwady and Jim Ward and Republican candidate Jim Barnett said this during a forum at the University of Kansas that they were troubled by years of anti-immigrant dialogue from 2 Kansas GOP heavyweights and comparable Twitter rhetoric favored by President Donald Trump. Really? Really, we're going to try and compare our gubernatorial candidates and our elected officials in Kansas to the Twitter account from Donald Trump. And by the way, Donald Trump has never said anything derogatory about immigrants. He's only talked about illegal immigrants. No, Andy, he's talked about everybody coming across the border is all criminals. No, he didn't. Look it up again. Listen to the quote. Originally, not from the second hand from the media that tries to manipulate it. No, he has not said anything derogatory about all immigrants. He had said that some of them are criminals, which they are, obviously, that some of them want to come up here and do harm, obviously, and that the government in Mexico is quite okay with having the bad people come into the country, obviously. Not the fact that all of them are bad, but there are some that are bad. Shocker, I know, right? But the 2 Democrats, 1 Republican candidate attacking some of the others for immoral comments along with economically destructive stances when it comes to immigration really shows that maybe they're advocating for the open borders ideal, which is very dangerous and destructive in itself. We'll talk about more about that when we come back later as well. This is The Voice Reason. A lot to get to. Your thoughts and calls as well. Stay here.
Giving the libs one dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into it. This is The Voice Reason. I am Andy Hoosier on a #Patriotic Tuesday. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. I love it. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It seems like there's never a dull moment when it comes to world events and politics. There's always news all the time. Even here in Kansas, crazily. I know, right? Right? It never ends. Which is why you probably get burnt out at times. And I stay energized. because I enjoyed it that much. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, real quick, before we shift gears just for a second, the Associated Press came out with a story about the asylum seekers in Tijuana, Mexico, as the U.S. border inspectors allowed some of the Central American asylum seekers to enter the country for processing, ending a brief impasse over a lack of space. Not because that we're just going to say, hey, you know what, you came here and, okay, let's go ahead and come in, but because you ran out of space to hold them, so you began processing them. Let me ask you something. If you have a crowd of individuals at your front door and they try pushing their way in and you're trying to block them off and there's just not enough space and it's really tight and it's really congested and really crazy, do you just start saying, okay, start coming in? I don't want you to, but go ahead and start coming in. Something to ponder, right? Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to play an interview that we had yesterday, and we talked a little bit about this, but with him. But Jim Bohannon, he's a nationally syndicated radio host. He is on numerous radio stations all across the nation. He's been in radio for years. The radio legend that he is. You can hear him on KIUL, KYUL, and on KQAM here in Wichita every night, 9 to midnight live. He is Mr. Jim Bohannon, and we sat down with him yesterday right here on The Voice of Reason. Mr. Jim Bohannon, radio legend. Jim, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Andy. What a build-up. Thank you very much. I'll try to live up to all of that. It's always a pleasure to be back on the Big Talker.
Hey, I love having you on the show. I love having you on our airwaves. We love being able to hear you live in the evenings as things are going on, and we always enjoy having you on the program here first thing in the morning, so I appreciate that very much. The last time we had talked, I believe it was right after the elections, really, and President Trump was just kind of getting into the swing of things, and there was a lot of big news happening of what he was going to do as president. Over the last, really, the first year of his administration, now that we've had a massive tax cut, or not necessarily a tax reform, but a tax cut before the end of the holidays last year, we've repealed part of the individual mandate for health care. Now we're looking at some of the immigration stuff. Your thoughts on what's been happening and your take on the administration so far?
Frankly, I think the president has done a pretty good job, very honestly, especially given the near universal, unanimous opposition of Democrats, who form, of course, a significant minority in each house of Congress. I think he's done quite a job. Obviously, the tax cuts, and now we're hearing about a phase 2 of tax cuts, which might include some new ways of perhaps saving your money, perhaps some tax-deferred kind of thing that they're talking about. We've also had, of course, those millions of new jobs that have been created after we had been told by President Obama that there was a new normal because we have to have all of these regulations that kill business and job creation. So the new normal is that we'll have a lot of unemployment and very slow growth. Well, guess what? The actual normal is we don't have to do that. We can have jobs and we can have growth.
Crazy how that works, isn't it? Yeah,
it really is.
I saw the story last week of 14 states recording record low unemployment rates, and that's, by the way, coming from red states and blue states, which really means that it's the national economy that's ticking up. We have now we're having the problem to where we have too many jobs and not enough workers, and we're trying to find ways to actually be able to fill this. So this is a good problem to have.
It is, absolutely. That's one of the main problems that's gone back many years, many administrations, is that while we've had unemployment, we've also, at the same time, had job openings. Just check the various listings out there, wherever they post jobs in the newspaper, help wanted ads, or Craigslist, what have you. But they're for jobs with certain skills, and it's matching people who have those skills. But there have always been job openings, and the problem is the unemployed usually aren't qualified for them.
Mm-hmm. The new entry-level positions, are we seeing maybe a tick up or a tick down from entry-level? Because we always hear about the fight for 15 and the entry-level jobs or the minimum wage jobs that need to be $15 an hour, which is going to, by the way, run out people that may not have the experience, young individuals who are trying to get some experience in the workforce, or individuals trying to maybe start all over again with their life, whatever the case may be. But between technology and then the fight for 15, are we seeing an increase or a decrease in entry-level positions across the nation?
Well, certainly you're going to erase a lot of entry-level positions. And keep in mind, of course, that very few people actually choose to live a life living at the minimum wage. Most people use this as an entry-level position. They learn a work ethic. They get a job track record. They can help pay for their school. But something that people need to keep in mind is we've seen a lot of automation. Trust me, there is a lot of automation that is out there right now, but it's sitting there because it hasn't been economically advisable.
Sure.
And there have been companies that have said, well, we could automate this, we could automate that. At the moment, the workers that we employ are economically more feasible. You raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour, and overnight, a lot of these companies are going to say, "Okay, that's it.
Yep.
Bring in the machines because they're now cheaper than these workers." So you'll see some people, sure, living on their $15 an hour minimum wage, and they'll see an awful lot of their friends who are simply out of work, living on unemployment.
Sure, which is going to create a whole nother issue by itself. I saw a piece of legislation Bernie Sanders is working on, of course, on the socialist side of that, wanting to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, but then also the universal health care, saying that everybody should be covered in that sense. We already repealed the individual mandate when we came to the tax cut to the end of last year. So the question is, I guess, is where's healthcare do you think is going to go from here? Are we going to go back to a more privatized healthcare system, or will we try a different type of socialized universal healthcare through a Bernie Sanders mentality?
Well, of course, Bernie is fortunate in that he happens to know that in the back of the Treasury Department there is a money tree. So we don't really have to worry about paying for all of this. We'll just go out and we'll pluck some leaves off the money tree every morning. Until that is fully grown, however, maybe we ought to avoid Bernie's approach to things. What can we do? Okay, we have certainly removed that individual mandate. At this juncture, any significant change in health care would have to come through legislation. You couldn't just do it through executive action. And there's simply no way that this Congress, and who knows what's going to come out of the November election, there's no way that Congress and President Trump would agree on something. So for the moment, I would have to think that we will limp along. I certainly don't see us going towards some massive single-payer type of healthcare system, and I don't even see some of what might be very beneficial privatizing reforms taking place. I think that for the moment, the public has given us, although the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, we have, to a certain extent, the straight paralysis ticket being voted.
You think they're going to kind of just hold their breath until we get through the midterms to see what it's going to look like from there on out?
I hope they try something because I'm not sure what's going to come out of the midterms. I think there's every likelihood the Republicans will lose seats in the House. Whether they lose control or not is up for debate.
Sure.
In the Senate, it's going to be very hard for the Republicans not to gain some seats. I mean, the Democrats have 25 seats up, counting the two independents who vote as Democrats, and the Republicans only have 8 seats to defend. So it's almost certain, I think, that the Senate, since 10 of those 25 states are states carried by President Trump, that the Republicans will gain seats in the Senate, probably lose seats in the House. So I hope they try to do something now, but honestly, Andy, I don't see that they're going to have a much better circumstance after November based on what we're seeing now.
I would think so. We're speaking with Jim Bohannon. You can hear him live at 9 to midnight every evening right here on KQAM. Let's talk about real quickly the caravan that came up north. Over the weekend, I saw the Facebook Live and the media coverage of the caravan finally reaching the southern border, and there were the ralliers that were down there trying to encourage them to come across, a lot of them trying to come in illegally. I find it fascinating that we have people protesting and wanting them to come here illegally. The media's there covering them, watching them come over illegally, and yet we're not having a big push of saying, wait a second, we're seeing people cross our border illegally. What are we doing about this problem?
Well, we should be seeing more of that, of course. We live in a world of nation states. I'm sure that irritates the left no end, but it's true. The only alternative to the nation state is anarchy right now. There is no hold hands and sing Kumbaya one world out there, nor is there likely to be one for another couple of centuries. So in a world of nation states, a nation state absolutely has the right, I would go further and say the obligation, to determine who enters its territory, when, how many, how long, and for what reason. That is to say, it is an obligation to decide who comes in. Is this anti-immigrant? No. Does that mean we don't need any immigrants? No, and that's why the left is lying when they go through this whole anti-immigrant nonsense. It's not anti-immigrant, it is anti-law breaking, that we decide who comes in. Mm-hmm. Will we decide that some should? Absolutely. We should decide. That's the only issue here.
Well, and that's what we have to focus on. What's fascinating to me, and maybe you've seen it a little bit differently, but over, a couple months ago when we were fighting the hashtag Schumer shutdown and the government shutdown between the budget, and then they wanted to include the DACA reform into the budget bill, and we shut down the government for a good 3 days, and then we threatened to do it again because Schumer realized that they were in a losing battle. They reopened it up and promised that we would address DACA before the next budget ending, which was 2 or 3 weeks after that, and then we kind of dropped it. We never heard anything from there. Do you think the Democrats right now are concerned that if they do a DACA reform and we did do some type of immigration reform, the Republicans would get the credit for it, or do they just not get the deal that they actually wanted to? Because we had a really good bill, in my opinion, come out of the House once that whole discussion was happening, to where we did compromise a little bit on DACA, but we ended the chain migration, we funded all the border wall that we needed to, and we took care of a lot of the business that we needed to, and then it kind of died off, and we haven't heard anything from immigration since.
Yeah, I think you're right. We were on the right track. If people say, "Don't you have any sympathy for those dreamers out there?" And I would say, to the extent of those who are dreamers, that is to say that they're actually high school valedictorians who just can't wait to get out there and invent a cure for cancer. Yes, I have sympathy for them, not for the gangbangers who have come in under the guise of DACA.
Sure.
But I do have sympathy for them. However, you must keep in mind that as long as we do not control our border, as long as there is not a wall or a fence or something from Brownsville, Texas, all the way to San Diego, that it is really nothing more, in terms of dreamers, nothing more than an incentive for others to say, see, they made it, I'll try to send my kids across the border. They are an incentive for breaking the law. That's why the president was so right when he said that we need to have any discussion of the dreamers joined with border security.
Exactly.
If we had border security, and that is to say not perfect but reasonable border security, then the main objection I have to the dreamers would go away, and I would be willing to consider the possibility that we might let them stay under certain circumstances.
There it is, Jim Bohannon, nationally syndicated radio host. You can hear him live on many of these stations at 9 p.m. at night, live, 9 to midnight. Let's take a break here, wrap up the show. We appreciate him coming on here. Wrapping up hour number one. Lots more to get to today. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
On the Mid-America Network.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number one right here on the Big Talker KQAM, KGPT TV, and across the entire Mid-America Network. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It is a crazy shenanigans time as we are seeing the border fill up with individual asylum seekers and looking to try and come into the country. We have protesters, ralliers, criers wanting to say, please let them in. They need it. They're asylum seekers. They are refugees. They went through terrible, horrible things. And by the way, these are the same ones again that say, I need to leave the country because I hate Donald Trump. I can't get over the hypocrisy between the two. We don't like the nation because we don't like President Trump, but yet we should allow people to come in here because we realize this is still the greatest place on the entire planet, and we need to allow these people to come in because they can't afford to live where they're currently living. 316-721-8255. There's a lot to get to today, especially when it comes to the statewide level, that I do want to focus on a little bit, as well as we talked about some of the budgetary debates that are still going on in the state. The legislature still not making a complete decision as of yet. I mentioned briefly the public forum panel discussion that was happening yesterday at Kansas University when it came to some of the gubernatorial candidates, but there's some news, not a big shocker, but there's some news when it comes to the constitutional amendment that's trying to limit the Kansas Supreme Court. And for whatever reason, did we not see this coming from 2 miles away? As the leadership, unfortunately, in both chambers had originally said that we would not address any type of financing for educational finance, any type of bill, any type of budget, any type of money being allotted to it until we address a constitutional amendment. And it was being worked in some of the committees, and it was being discussed, and we were seeing some positive movement. We were seeing some encouragement that this might actually happen this year. And then they ended up changing their tone and saying, yeah, you know what? Instead of actually addressing the constitutional amendment before the budget and the funding for education, we're going to address the education funding, then we'll address the constitutional amendment. Yeah, that's what we'll do. And that was the momentum. And okay, you know what? It'll be in committee. It still go through. We can make this happen, I guess. This is not the right priority, but I guess as long as we get it done, then we get it done and we can move forward in the right direction. Now we're seeing, according to the Wichita Eagle, constitutional amendment to keep Kansas school districts from suing for additional funding in the future appears dead for this legislative session. Shocker, right? Now it's up to the Kansas Supreme Court to decide whether the legislature's plan, approved by Governor Jeff Collier, provides adequate funding for public education. Lawmakers haven't passed the constitutional amendment. Some wanted to combat what they see are never-ending lawsuits over school funding. Senate President Susan Wagle effectively ruled out passage of the amendment during this session, which must end on Friday of this week. What was the change of heart? What was the change of heart to say, you know what, we're going to address the constitutional amendment before education funding? Then it was, let's switch that and we'll do the educational funding. Then we'll address the constitutional amendment. Now it's, we don't have time. You know, it's a Tuesday. Friday's kind of the wrap up of the session. We're all done. And I know the one issue that many individuals really wanted to see, and that was really important for us to actually get through. Yeah, it's actually not going to happen. We may address it next session, but we're not going to do it this session. Now, they did say that if we get called back into a special session by the Kansas Supreme Court, then it would be brought up firsthand. So we're kind of waiting to the last minute again, right? We're kind of waiting for the last minute, for the end-all, be-all, for the crisis, for the last-ditch effort, for the worst-case scenario. And that's what seems to be the priorities here. The problem is that should have been the last-ditch effort or the worst-case scenario probably about 5 years ago. And yet we still haven't addressed it. And some say it's because we didn't have the numbers to be able to vote on it. This is why leadership needs to push and push and push and say that we will not fund education a single cent more until we address this constitutional amendment to make sure this doesn't happen again. And look, we're doing the Fast and Furious right now, are we not? The end of the session's on Friday. We're coming up to it. We can't go any longer. Why didn't we actually make that the priority and say, if you want educational funding, pass this amendment, and then we'll give you the money. And let's haggle with them. Have Republicans forgotten how to compromise or how to make deals or how to push or how to actually become the leaders? We are the leaders in the chambers of our legislature right now for the state of Kansas. We are. I know it seems kind of like not the case, but we are. And we could have been able to, and I would have been okay with this compromise and saying that we do the constitutional amendment to make sure that we never spend another single penny again from what the Supreme Court tells us, and then we'll give you your money for what you want this year. Good compromise. Didn't happen. Guess what? We lost out again this year. Shocker, right? Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Why would we give the ability for the Supreme Court to come back and say it's not adequate enough and be able to consume as much of the budget as they possibly want to for education, and then for everybody else to get the scraps and the leftovers? Why have we not focused on the Kansas Supreme Court's constitutional amendment to limit the power of the Supreme Court? Why is that not the number one priority and the only priority that we've had when it comes to educational finance?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. That's the way we roll. That's the way we stick to it. We're sticking to our guns. We do not care about what the progressives try and say about how terrible it is to be patriotic, waving the flag, and American on a daily basis. Welcome in. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. Welcome aboard. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling along. Like it, share it, leave a comment. Let's get some activity going on there. Let's generate it. Let's burst through the algorithm that is Facebook that does not allow conservative messages to be spread on a daily basis. Let's have a little fun with that. By the way, we do have as well, we're on the TuneIn app. If you are driving or if you are maybe in your office already and you want to listen via online because that's easier for you, just go to TuneIn on your phone and you can find KQAM and you can find us streaming there as well, along with KQAMradio.com, and you can find that one too. That one is up and rolling. You can check that out. We'd love to have you on there. 9 minutes past the hour. We got a lot to get to. Bryan Frye, City Council member, joining us in about 20 minutes at the bottom of the hour, as we usually do on a Tuesday. We love having him. In the 8 o'clock hour, we are excited to have on, and I believe for the first time on The Voice of Reason, he is current Kansas Insurance Commissioner. He is candidate for the GOP governor's race, Mr. Ken Selzer. He'll be joining us at 8 o'clock in studio, and looking forward to that one. Until then, we got a lot to get to between the caravan, between some issues happening in the state of Kansas, between happening across the entire nation. It's a fun time to be alive, and it's a great day for America, as we always love to say. But let's go ahead and kick off hour number 2 with a phone call. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you today?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
Well, I'm a little bit confused here. Why on earth do we need to amend the Constitution to take powers back to the Congress? Take it that they've.
It's a great question. You're right. Here's what's happened. And Governor Jeff Collier mentioned this. It's a lot of the other candidates for governor have mentioned this, but it's been going on for a long time, close to, 30, 40, 50 years, is back when they included an amendment to the state constitution where there's one stupid little word in the Kansas Constitution now to where the Kansas Supreme Court is able to verify funding going to public education as suitable, to make sure that we are funding suitable education in the interests of the government, in the interests of the state, to make sure that education funding is where it needs to be. And because of that open word of suitable, now the Kansas Supreme Court and the progressives and the special interests when it comes to the KNEA or the school boards or the teachers unions and whoever else wants to do this, the local school boards who feel that they need more money and more money and more money, they have been able to create lawsuits going to the Kansas Supreme Court and saying that they are not being funded suitably and that they need more funding because of, look at all these terrible things between graduation rates or test score results or the resources in the classroom or the lack of increase in salaries for the teachers, and they need more administrators and whatever. It's been very open-ended to where they've been able to file a lawsuit using our taxpayer money, by the way, taking our taxpayer money, going into the system for the children, taking that, hiring a lawyer, and going to the Supreme Court and saying that we are not being suitably funded. And that is the one thing that the Supreme Court is able to judge on, because the Congress is able to have the power of the purse, saying that this is how much money we're going to allot towards education in the state. And the Supreme Court comes back and says, no, it is now unconstitutional because you are not funding it suitably. And therefore, and so what we need to do is we need to have our constitutional amendment to come in and redefine what that suitable term means, and to tell the Kansas Supreme Court that they are not allowed to use taxpayer-funded money allotted to go towards a lawsuit to sue the state of Kansas for more taxpayer-funded money to go towards our educational system. And that's what we have to address. And until we do that, we are going to continuously see year over year over year over year more lawsuits saying that we're not funding it in a suitable manner, and therefore we have to increase funding for our education system.
Well, that whole deal is illegal, constitutionally illegal in the first place, because the Constitution says that they cannot construe laws that disparage us from our civil rights, any of our rights, and only and the Constitution says only the Congress has the power to make laws and
set the budget.
And it says that Article 1, Section 8, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debt.
Sure.
Provide. So, but what they're wanting to do is increase the debt.
You're right, because they don't care.
Force
And
the Congress to increase the debt.
you're right. They don't care, and that's the problem that we've been having, because before the Supreme Court used to come out, if you remember the difference between the Montoy case and the Gannon case, the two different cases that have been kind of the major ones filing lawsuits for more educational funding in Kansas, they used to come out and say, the Supreme Court telling Congress saying, you need to fund it by X amount of dollars. And you need to have this amount of money so that way it is suitable. Now they've realized that that is unconstitutional because they do not have the power of the purse. They're not able to dictate funding and budgetary issues. So all they can say now is, oh, it's not enough. Try again. So we throw more money at it. We rewrite the formula. We create a whole new educational finance plan. We submit it to the Congress, to the Supreme Court, and they come back and say, nope, it's not constitutional. It's not suitable. Try again. And then their lawyers say, this is what we recommend, but we're not telling you exactly how much to actually fund it. So we need a Congress to actually stand up, grow a backbone, and say, we're not going to do what you tell us to do. We feel that we are adequately funding education, and if you don't like it, then you can go pound sand, and if you want to try and shut down the schools, then all the power to you, because you're not able to do that.
Well, also in Article 3, Section 2, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States. So it's the laws of the United States say that the judicial powers can't, make laws. Or can't say, well, you've got to do this or you got to do that. No, they can't say that. And the Congress, and like you said, needs to get a backbone and say, you're going against the Constitution of the United States, and every state has to follow the Constitution of the United States.
You're right.
They can't be making up laws.
We're supposed to be, but they've been able to find a way to finagle that to make it very open-ended. So when we talk about suitable, they don't talk about the finance side of suitable, but whether it's actually the appropriate environment for children to be in, whether it's with the teachers that are struggling because of salaries, or whether it's because of the graduation rate, whether it's because of the test scores, and because of all these things, then it's not suitable, because then the public education system is failing, and we need to do something about it. And oh, by the way, by that default of something means that we need to have more money in there so that way they're able to do what they need to do properly.
Well, it's not the lack of money that's causing the failure of our
well, right, but they don't see
system.
that, or they do see that and they just don't care, because that's been the debate. That's been the ongoing, frustrating, banging our head against the wall, frustrating, angry debate that we have been having, because it's not the money. The report that just came out in the legislature that we funded, what was it, $250,000 for research to come up and do some research on public education and to look at what's going on in the state, said that with our current funding levels right now, we should be at close to a 92-93% graduation rate, which would be number one in the entire nation with a state's graduation rate. And we're not. We're at like an 85 or an 86%, which means it's not a money issue. But they don't care. They don't see that. The local school boards want more money. The local school districts want more money. So therefore, they're going to continue to try and, as long as they're allowed to, file more constitutional lawsuits, go after Congress, blame the Republicans, blame the conservatives, that we're not funding the money and that we don't care about children because we're not putting all of our money into there. We're already funding it by 53% of our entire state budget, and we have to realize that money is not the issue. It is the bureaucrats, it is the administrators, it is the school boards that actually hire more administrators than they do teachers. It is the fact that we're not focusing the money actually in the classroom. We could give teachers raises right now, but we're not. We could actually fund all the resources in the classroom without the teachers having to buy it out of their own pocket, but we're not. If we would stop focusing on building a brand new Taj Mahal for a new school building all the time, if we'd stop focusing on trying to put AstroTurf on all of our school football fields all the time, if we'd stop worrying about trying to build a tennis complex all the time, if we'd stop having to worry about building an Olympic-sized swimming pool all the time, then maybe we could focus it on the actual education system in the classroom with the students and with the resources that they actually need, but we're not. And then the school boards that are making those decisions, by the way, trying to build all these things, then turn around and say, we don't have enough money, we need more money, and the Republicans are terrible for not funding us more money, we're going to sue you for that, using taxpayer money to go to the state and then sue the state of Kansas and the people of Kansas for more money. That's the absurdity, and I'm glad you brought it up because sometimes we get so deep into the weeds about what's happening with the current legislation and the debate on it, we forget to step back a little bit and look at what's really happening and what started this thing from the get-go and this entire process from the start, because it is a very frustrating, very angering, and ongoing process until we actually do something about it. That's why this piece of legislation right now that they're voting on with the $80 million error, this $520 to $530 million of additional funding, is completely absurd. And then for the legislature and the leadership of the legislature to say, at first, we're going to not address public education funding until we look at a constitutional amendment to clean this up so it doesn't happen anymore. And that was their priority for like a day. And then they turned around and said, no, we're going to do the educational funding bill first, and then we'll look at the constitutional amendment. And then we just get word today that, you know what, we won't do the constitutional amendment until probably next session, but we're not going to have time this year. Thanks, but no thanks. We don't have enough votes. We can't do it right now. It's just going to be put on the back burner. Really? Shows you the priorities, right? And it's not necessarily leadership's fault. They're concerned that they don't have enough votes to put it on the floor and not make it happen, but at least let's get it on the floor. Let's make a vote. Let's expose them. Let's do what we need to, because that will expose us or expose some to be able to help go into the midterm elections on who's actually willing to stand up to the other side. We got to remember there's something called checks and balances within our government, the three branches of government. And for those that are not familiar, we have three branches of government: the legislative, the judicial, and the executive. None of them are more powerful than the other in any way, shape, or form. Even if the Supreme Court came out and said that something is unconstitutional from their interpretation, all that means is that they've interpreted it that way, that's not the law of the land, that's not the way it is, that's not the end of, be-all, closed case, end of story, That's not. They can say it's unconstitutional. Guess what? You can still override a Supreme Court's decision with the legislature. You still can. Because that's the checks and balance system. They do not have the most power out of any of the three branches. They cannot just say, no, you know what, executive branch, you're not allowed to do that. End of story, you can't do it. Oh, guess what, legislative branch, you tried to write a piece of legislation, it's unconstitutional, so therefore you're not allowed to do it, and end of story. Because that would mean that they have more power than the other two branches of government. That doesn't work that way. And the legislature seems to forget that sometimes. They've forgotten the fact that they can actually override the Supreme Court if they need to, or they can ignore the Supreme Court if they need to, because we have a checks and balance system. The Kansas Supreme Court, the legal system, the Supreme Court itself is not the most powerful branch. Right now it is, because we allow them to. But they're not supposed to be the most powerful. They're supposed to be equal. Equal. And you can cry and claim about unconstitutionality all you want to. That's why we amend the Constitution. We don't give you the authority to even look at this, and then we leave it solely in the hands of the legislatures. But right now we're not doing that. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Deacon.
What's going on, Deacon? How are you?
Hey, it's a great day, brother.
Hey.
I got to say on this the education being all about money. They've got to make it about money, because if they don't, then they don't have control over what the problem is.
Sure.
The problem is parents not being involved and kids thinking that their education doesn't matter because the parents are just sitting on their butt at the house watching TV.
Oh, sure. No, you're right. There's a lot deeper issues than just the money or even the education system itself. No longer do we have the parents that are going home and teaching them above and beyond what their homework actually was and spending hours with them, telling them about history or helping them with their math. So that way the students can walk in and just breeze through it for the most part, because they've been taught about it more so it's in a deeper level at home. And we have a lot of issues on many fronts. And one of them, you're right, is including the home front.
And, another thing that goes along with that is this Common Core thing. Parents, I think that they were taken out of their kids' education by the state because the state was wanting to indoctrinate our children, and the parents are going, I don't understand this garbage. How am I supposed to fight against it?
That's a great point. Now, Donald Trump has been working on trying to repeal Common Core at the federal level, which we're slowly working there. I think Betsy DeVos was a good choice when it came to the Department of Education to start working on that. But the states still have the ability and the authority. Even if we repeal it at the federal level, the states have the ability to be able to choose to do the Common Core style education at the state level. And if we've chosen to do so, then you're right. I mean, you come home and the kid says, hey, I need help with my homework. And you're looking at it and say, I don't understand a word of what you're doing. You better go ask your teacher. And then you're right. I mean, that just kind of leaves the parents hanging and completely uninvolved with the educational process.
And, if it comes down to the states, then we need to get people elected who have enough backbone to represent the people who elected them and not the empty cans that are rattling so loud.
Exactly. I'm right there with you, my friend. Deacon, I love it. I appreciate the call very much so. 316-721-825. You're right. I mean, it's deep. It's on a deeper level. When it comes down to it, just like anything else, that if you want to do something right, you got to do it yourself. I've learned that at a very young age. And when it comes to education especially, really, I mean, you as the parent need to oversee your children. And if they're struggling, if they're not getting the adequate education that they need, if they're not getting what they exactly want or whatever, it's up to you to educate them, to teach them, to take them to that next level. I remember spending hours in my room with my parents trying to learn, and my mom going on about one paragraph of the history book and then going on for a half-hour discussion about that time in history and learning about it and learning a little bit deeper level. I remember my dad, who was way more into the literature side and the writing side, trying to write, because I was terrible at writing. I'm still terrible at writing. Try and go to the KQAMradio.com website and read my blog on my page. It's terrible. I'm terrible at writing. That's why I do radio verbally and not writing, because I wouldn't be able to write for a newspaper. I couldn't do it. I'm terrible at writing, but he used to try and be able to help me. Spelling I was relatively decent at, but trying to put everything together and all the grammar rules, good luck with that. But let's go on about a history discussion. I can go on for hours about it. That's just the way it was. But guess what? I needed a lot of help with that. My parents helped me a lot with that, because the teacher itself trying to manage 20, 30, 40 kids at a time for a 20-minute block or a 40-minute block is not going to be sufficient for your child to walk away and be an expert in those fields. It's just not going to happen no matter how much money we sink in to that classroom. 25 minutes past the hour, we got to take a break. When we come back after the bottom of the hour, City Council member Bryan Frye going to be joining us. Looking forward to chatting with him as we do on a Tuesday. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Great discussion this morning. I love it. As we're talking about some of the educational finance, it's good sometimes to step back and look at more of the general terms on what actually started this, because sometimes when you're in the weeds, if you're in a project, guys, you know this, you're trying to build something and you're really intent, looking at the directions, trying to figure it out, and you just can't. Sometimes it's good just to step back and use the common sense. And right now the common sense is, oh, look, there's a problem. And it could be avoided if we would address the actual issue rather than putting a Band-Aid over it every single time. Bottom of the hour news coming up when we come back. City Council member Bryan Frye going to be joining us. Looking forward to chatting with him. Your phone calls as well. Stay tuned. This is The Voice of Reason.
It's time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane?
I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into it. Great to have you along today. It is a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. We love Tuesdays because that's just the way we roll. By the way, for many of the listeners, we did get a couple messages. We know we're working on it, but if you are listening via Facebook Live or on the FM signal, fantastic. Welcome in. Hopefully you found your way there. If you're trying to listen to the AM signal, we did have a couple of technical issues this morning with the wind and some other issues, so we're working on it. The AM should be back up here shortly. Stay tuned in for that, but we are still all over the FM signal, 102.5 FM. We are still on Facebook Live. We are on the TuneIn app. We are streaming all over the internet, so tune in that way, and we'll get the AM back up for you here as soon as we possibly can. It's that time. We do it every single week.
We built this city.
With our City Council member here from the Wichita area, Mr. Bryan Frye. Bryan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
Always a good time. I tell you what, we started a great conversation last week when it came to some of the budgetary discussions for the city.
Yep.
And I know as the summer goes along and you guys continue that discussion, we'll bring it back up again. It's when it comes to budgets, when it comes to tax rates, when it comes to spending, both at the city, at the county, at the state levels, even at the federal level, it's something that I know myself, along with all the listeners, are very, very passionate about, because I mean we're all affected by it. So
absolutely, and we're going to continue to dive deep into this budget situation all summer long. The city is fairly conservative when it comes to finances, and so we have to have a balanced budget. So we're very investigative as looking into where we're at, where we're going. We look 3, 4, 5 years out.
Sure.
So we always have to have a balanced budget at the end of the year. We have to make sure our revenue meets our expenses. So we're continuing to evaluate. We're going department by department, looking at what's untouchable and what is expendable, and making sure we're doing the things that support the mission of the city. So
sure,
it's a continual process.
It's an ever evolving chess game that you never see exactly all where the pieces are. So that's the fun part. I mean, we do have opportunity, and as we mentioned last week, of not only the spending side of the city, but the actual growth of the city as well, the different industries and the industry diversity that we could potentially see, the job growth,
right.
Hopefully trying to maintain a lot of the young individuals staying here and investing their livelihoods here. And between all that and people hopefully starting to move here again, then I mean, there's so many different angles at this that we could see in positive movements.
Absolutely. In fact, one success story that we're looking at this week is just last year we adopted a new spec industrial building program. There was a big demand for warehouse space. And developers are saying we have it, we need it, and we just need a little bit of help. So we created a program that allows it. Well, that first project's coming forward already.
Sure.
Just a couple of months after we approved it. And this is a new 100,000 square foot distribution warehouse facility in Northeast Wichita. It's got a great return on investment for the city. And so that's really nice to see the projects and the programs that we're putting in place having an immediate effect. And
sure.
So that just speaks volumes about what's happening and how we're pushing forward. So it's really good. Also today, we're bringing back a topic that we've talked about for a few months now.
It's a fun one. It's a fun one.
Yep. And we've been talking about it since last year, and that's the fireworks ordinance.
Sure.
And, basically last year the fire department came to us and said, we've got an issue. We're surrounded by jurisdictions and cities that are allowing full-scale fireworks, and we don't have the means to deal with them. And we need to adopt a different way of doing things because people are bringing in the big fireworks. These aren't the little confetti cannons, that we allow to sell right now, or the little poppers, the little sparklers. These are the big, Class C fireworks, the big anvil blasts and so forth. The things that make the loud noises, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that gets everybody excited.
There you go.
So those are coming into the city, and yet we don't have the mechanisms to enforce ordinances to enforce violations and so forth. So the fire department really came to us with a couple of different proposals. We said we need to hear from more of the public. We took it out to all the district advisory boards and got a lot of feedback. And it's coming back to us today, hopefully with the final decision. I think where we're leaning is continuing the policy of what we have of not allowing the big, large-scale fireworks to be brought into the city.
Okay.
But at that same time, increasing the fines for violations, making it more uniform and who gets fined. Because right now, the firefighters have to see you shoot the fireworks off to charge you with the crime.
Sure.
Now it'll be more of if there's evidence that it was shot in your yard or at your home, then that's enough that they can charge juveniles.
What if you shoot it off in your neighbor's yard?
That's a good question. And that's what we're going to talk about today as well. Who is responsible when something like that happens? If someone takes it over, is it that property owner now that allows it to happen in their yard?
Kind of their responsibility
Right.
sort of thing. So it's because I know this has been the discussion. As you know, I mean, I've been a fan of allowing the big ones to happen because, I mean, you're right. So we can't buy them within city limits, but you go outside of the city, go to the rural community, you buy the big boomers, you bring them back in. And then, I mean, you see it on 4th of July, you see it on New Year's, and they're all over the city anyways.
Right. And we're hearing from, people with pets and animals and veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, a lot of different issues where people are saying, this is a really problem for me, for little kids that are scared and so forth,
Sure.
So bottom line is the way we have the policy right now, we're not enforcing it. So either we have to do a better job of enforcing it, or we have to allow it. And that's where we get a 50-50. I mean, we're getting half the people say allow the big stuff, and the other half are saying don't allow the big stuff. Enforce what the policy that you have.
Sure. I know that before the compromises that were potential, and we got, the lines are already lighting up on this. They're already
sure
excited.
they are,
So
yeah.
we'll get to it. We'll get to you guys in just a second here. But I know that some of the compromise that we were talking about is either having them in certain areas to where it'd be an open public place, go out and shoot them off all you want to and have fun with it, capping it at a certain time to by 10, 11 o'clock when it's done, so that way it's not going till 2, 3 a.m. And maybe if you do have the animals that get a little spooked or skittish with it, then it's only a confined time. So there's some different compromises, but it sounds like if depending on what the report comes back with today, that it may kind of stay as is with not allowing it and then starting to enforce it a little more heavier.
Right. So again, this is sometimes the speed of government, right? It moves like molasses and it just takes forever. And then there are other times we're like a hamster on a wheel and we just move like crazy.
Sure.
This is one of those that it's just taken a while to get to. We looked at the safe zones, setting up different areas throughout town where people could bring the large scale fireworks and shoot. Pretty much what we heard throughout the city is that's not a good idea because you can't really control who's doing what at those sites, the cost of cleanup, how safe is it when you got, 60 different people all shooting off large-scale fireworks and who's watching everyone, right? I mean, if you've ever shot large-scale fireworks, which I admit I have as well.
Sure.
You got to be really cautious and you got to know where everybody's at and make sure, you're shooting. And then if you just open it up and you've got a big park with everybody bringing Armageddon to it and who's in charge of what and who's keeping track of all the little ones. And it was just decided that that's probably not the safest thing to do. So
maybe
those
we'll set it up kind of like a shooting range to where you have, like the shooting range. I mean, you kind of had that common courtesy as everybody shoots. You don't go down down the aisle to go grab your target to look at it while everybody else is shooting. You kind of have that, and maybe something set up that way of here's the area where you set them off. Here's where you spectate back here, and you kind of do it in a procession of doing it back and forth like that. Because shooting ranges, I haven't heard of anybody getting shot.
So then you get into that courtesy versus enforcement and who's playing by the rules and who's not, and who's making sure everyone's playing by the rules and who pays for that enforcement.
Sure.
And who, and right now it's very difficult. I mean, we're answering so many calls every year. And the other challenge is those hours and how long do you set up those safe to shoot zones if you do it that way?
Sure.
And what days do you do that? It just got to be real problematic.
It's a deep discussion there.
Exactly.
Now, when it comes to maybe the time frame for something like that, what was the discussion on?
So
on
again,
there?
We have a nuisance ordinance that cuts off loud noises at midnight, and so that's one of the topics. Whether it's 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Again, with the summertime, it doesn't usually get dark till 9:15, 9:30. You don't have a lot of.
You got a 2-hour window.
Yeah, so we haven't settled on a time. I think the ordinance is proposing it be 6 a.m. to midnight. I think that may be a little too long, in my opinion.
Sure.
Who's shooting fireworks off at 6 a.m.? There's really no need, right? But again,
unless you dipped into the adult beverage a little long there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that sets up a whole other issue, right?
That's a whole different issue there.
So we're going to hopefully look at maybe a tighter window. Also, the days. Right now, it's set up to mirror the state ordinance, which is June 27th through July 5th. That's what, 10 days? That's a pretty long time. Maybe it should be a shorter window, July 1 to July 4th, with maybe the 5th being a rain date by mayor decree if the 4th is raining, and maybe allow that. I don't know. But right now, as it sets, it's June 27th through July 5th. 6 a.m. to midnight. Today we might narrow that scope a little bit as well.
So this is going to be a big discussion. Yeah, this will be a fun one at the city council meeting today. The phones are lighting up. I know this is a big issue and everybody's excited to talk about it. So let's go to them. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Should we allow the big fireworks to be booming here in the Wichita city limits, or should we continue to keep them banned from within city limits and try to enforce that a little bit better? Your thoughts on this? Let's go to the phones line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Tom.
Tom, how are you, sir?
Oh, not too bad.
Good.
My main reason for calling, but now that I've listened to you, I have a comment on that. But I was wondering, is your AM off the air right now?
It is, yes. We are having some AM issues with the wind was interfering with the transmitter, had some issues. So we're working on that one. We are on the FM at 102.5, then, of course, all the Facebook Live and the online streaming. But, yes, the AM is having some issues right now.
All right. And on the fireworks just because I've seen what it does to pets. You know, I would prefer to, at the very least, limit the scope. It seems like 4th of July season here starts on the 4th of June and goes to the 4th of August. And it's just a little bit over the top. You know, I could deal with it for a few days, you know, trying to keep the dog quiet downstairs in a quiet area or something, but
Sure.
it just terrifies a lot of different animals. So
Sure. No, that's a great point. That's a great point. I appreciate that very much. And that seems to be one of the biggest arguments against the big boomer. And I would be, look, and I'm, as I mentioned, I am totally for the allowing of the big boomings personally. That's, my opinion there. I love the big booms. I love the fireworks. I think it's our American tradition.
Exactly.
And it's not only allowed, but it should be mandatory that we shoot out some big ones like that. But that's the biggest argument has been the animals. Now, and I've mentioned this before, but we have a pet. We have a dog. I'm not the most lovey-dovey on pets, just me personally. My wife loves it, and I get the whole pet thing, and it's very but to respect that, I agree that if we are going to boom off the big ones, then we should have it as a confined time. And you're right, not have it as a month-long extravaganza. Right. Have it contained to 1 or 2 nights. Have it be capped off at like midnight, so that way that we know what we're anticipating. We can prepare for that short amount of time, and then we don't have to worry about it. So that we are respectful across the board.
Right, and that's also the biggest challenge is just trying to enforce the laws that we currently have and making sure that we got enough staff on duty to answer all the calls. Because when it starts to get this time of year, 911 is just getting. In fact, they set up a separate line just for firework call complaints.
Sure.
To stay away from 911 because it ties it up so much. Well, that's a risk to the safety of everyone as well. So it's a delicate balance. And we've been dealing with this for a very long time, and I don't think we're going to hear the end of it. I think maybe this year with some of the things we're talking about doing. We may have to put it in play and see how it works this year, and then maybe even make adjustments next year.
Sure.
I don't think it'll be the end of the discussion. I think there'll be continued tweaks and ways to improve this, and hopefully get something for everyone so that you can still celebrate, and observe the holiday, but do it in a way that's responsible and sensitive to your neighbors and everyone else. So.
Exactly, and that's what we want to do. Maybe another side of this to look at, too, and I don't know if you guys have done it yet or not, but maybe the tax revenue of selling of the fireworks within city limits of the bigger ones, and how many people are actually leaving the city to go buy elsewhere, and that's the loss of revenue in the city.
Yeah, one of the other challenges that we have is that our permit fees for our fireworks tents have been the lowest in the area. I mean, $85 for a tent.
Sure.
And when you're looking at some of these other tents, permit fees that are surrounding are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000.
Wow.
Right. So we're leaving money on the table.
Sure.
And so one of the things we're talking about doing is increasing those permit fees to $1,500 per tent site. So if we had 30, we're looking at $45,000 that we can use to step up enforcement during those times. And again, so, will we get 45 tent sites or $45,000? Maybe not. We'll probably lose a few of those, but at the same time, we know we need to raise those fees a little bit. Maybe not the sales tax idea. Anytime you start talking about sales tax in Wichita, that's about as squirrely as a $3 bill. I mean, people just don't like it.
Well, and we don't like that, But if you are especially going to raise the permit price for that, then the allowing of the sale of the bigger ones might entice them to say, you know what, I'm not going to lose. I'm still going to be able to compensate for that enough because I'm going to be able to sell those that we weren't able to before, as opposed to people saying I'm going to go to some rural community outside of the city to go buy fireworks because they can get better stuff.
Right. So I mean, it is a delicate balance. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we know what we were doing wasn't working.
Sure.
So we got to do something. And hopefully making these compromises on both sides will still get everybody what they need, and we can do a better job of enforcement and again, tweak it as we go along.
Sure. It's going to be an ongoing discussion. I'm really excited about it. I know people are passionate about that one. We got just a few minutes left, but other than the fireworks, anything else happening at the meeting today?
You talk about fireworks and stuff that people don't like in their backyard. We have a conditional use for a cell tower in the Riverside area that's brought a lot of passion. Just like fireworks, cell towers are one of those things that people just love them or they hate them. They love the data, they love the convenience a cell phone brings, but nobody wants a tower in their backyard, and I get that. It's a very difficult decision. This is a zoning case because it's not allowable by administrative approval in this particular location, so that what makes it more difficult. And it's in an area that's historically got some value with being near the North High School and the Riverside district and so forth. So very passionate people on both sides, and there's been a lot of public input and dialogue at different meetings and so forth. But today should be the final decision, and I don't know where the rest of the council stands on it. But again, it's a zoning case that makes it one of those things that people maybe they don't understand all the rules of how zoning works, and so it's an education process. But
sure,
there are other opportunities down the line where it could still get denied even if we approve it. So just because whatever action today happens, it could still get heard by other higher agencies like EPA, FCC, state historic preservation. So.
Okay. It's going to be a big one, too.
Yeah, cell towers and fireworks. This is a good one today.
I like it. Well, if people want to show up to the meeting, I know that they're going to want to have their voice heard or at least listen to the discussion as well. How can people go to the city council meeting today?
Absolutely. We start at 9 a.m.
Okay.
At City Hall, which is at Central and Main.
Very good. Very good. Bryan Frye, City Council member. We always love having you come in studio, my friend. Always a great time.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Let's go ahead and take a break. Wrapping up hour number 2. Lots more to get to today on The Voice of Reason. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Thanks again to Bryan Frye, Wichita City Council member, joining the show. Always a fun discussion when we talk about the fireworks. Look, I understand the issue with the animals and with the pets and the shakiness of the little kids. I am all for the booming of the big fireworks, and the safe zone I think is perfect. Have a city park, have a big open area to be able to fire them off. And I mean, come on, we got shooting ranges, public shooting ranges where people are courteous. If you're not courteous, usually you get booted pretty quickly because people do care about the safety of others, and we want to do the same thing. And I think that'd be a perfect compromise. Doesn't sound like that's what's going to happen right now, but again, my personal opinion, and your voice can be heard at the Wichita City Council meeting for you to be able to voice your concerns one way or another on how you feel about it. The crazy part about it is that the majority of people that we've talked to on the radio with who've called in and discussed that when we've talked about this issue have been for more of the limited restriction or banning altogether. And more cities, as cities grow and as the more populations are there and as more tightly condensed areas, we're seeing more and more cities want to ban fireworks altogether. And are we losing our American traditionalism, our American values, and our American way with shooting off fireworks for 4th of July and or New Year's? I'm a little concerned about that. Lots more coming up. Hour number 3. Stay here.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
Why would we give the ability for the Supreme Court to come back and say it's not adequate enough and be able to consume as much of the budget as they possibly want to for education, and then for everybody else to get the scraps and the leftovers? Why have we not focused on the Kansas Supreme Court's constitutional amendment to limit the power of the Supreme Court? Why is that not the number one priority and the only priority that we've had when it comes to educational finance?
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. By the way, the AM signal, 1480 on the AM side, if you are trying to listen to that, I believe is slowly coming back up. We are working on it. Don't worry. I think the wind had something to do with it. It is crazy out there yesterday and this morning. So we are working on it. Should be back up shortly, but we are on the FM 102.5 FM. We are on Facebook Live right now, facebook.com/1480 KQAM. We are on the TuneIn app at KQAM Radio. We are all over the board for online listening. If you're not able to get the AM as of right now, we are working on it and should be back up very, very shortly. And we appreciate you very much. And we've gotten a ton of messages on social media, on Facebook Live, on personal messages, allowing us, letting us know that it was off. So we thank you very much for that. We love the fact that you're engaged, that you're listening. And when it's not happening, you're saying, hey, where the heck are you? and we appreciate that and love that very much. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, it is a fun show today so far. We love, again, Bryan Frye, Wichita City Council member, joining the show. I do want to shift gears a bit. This is the first time I believe we've had him on the program. I'm really excited to have him on. He sat down with us yesterday. We got this recorded as he was in town yesterday, as he's been running around, but he is current Kansas insurance commissioner. He is a Republican candidate for the GOP for the governor's race. Mr. Ken Selzer was able to join us yesterday here on The Voice of Reason. This is what he had to say while he was in studio with us. Current insurance commissioner for the state of Kansas and candidate for the Republican side, Mr. Ken Selzer. Ken, how are you, my friend?
Very good. Thank you, Andy, for inviting me to your show.
Hey, I really appreciate you coming on here. How's the campaign trail going so far?
It's going very well. As you know, I grew up in this area and have a lot of connection to the Wichita area, particularly to the north part of Wichita. I grew up by Gossel, Kansas.
Okay.
On a farm right on Highway 15, and am so proud of my roots here in the heart of central Kansas.
Sure. It is something to be very proud of. I've been here for about 3 years, and I wish I would have been born and raised in Kansas. It's a great place, and I don't think I'm ever going to leave. I really do think so. Talk about, first off, before we get into the governor's race, talk about your side right now as the insurance commissioner, what you've done, how long you've been involved with the Kansas government, and kind of where you're at right now.
Yes, thank you. Kansans chose me as their insurance commissioner 4 years ago in a very crowded primary. There were 5 people very well qualified, chose me to be their insurance commissioner, and we've taken that charge to heart. We have calmly, thoughtfully managed the office. We've reduced the number of employees. We've reduced costs. We have increased productivity. And a lot of people saw that and wondered why we couldn't just take that same basic, calm, thoughtful management attitude towards the broader state government. We have so many budget issues. We have so many runaway cost issues, and we need to bring those under control. I have shown that I can do it in government. I've been in business all of my career and then chose to run for an open seat as Kansas Insurance Commissioner, and we proved we can bring good business practices, thoughtful business practices to the broader state government.
You're able to see from the business aspect of that, being insurance commissioner, the growth or the lack of growth and kind of where we're at right now when it comes to businesses in the state of Kansas. From your perspective, have you seen an increase of small business in the state? Have you seen a decrease? Have we been hurting quite a bit with the economy? What's it look like right now?
What we do know is that up through last month, our economy in Kansas lagged the national economy. It has for a number of years. We need to make Kansas grow. That's one of the themes of our campaign, is to make Kansas grow. Kansas is 42% ag if you focus on the original production. We need to make ag grow if Kansas is going to grow. We need to make aviation and manufacturing grow if Kansas is going to grow. We have a really good service economy, but we need to continue feeding that particular part of the economy as well. It starts with ag, and it starts with manufacturing.
Sure. Oh, I completely agree, especially here in the Wichita area. We're seeing the beginning of the diversification of the economy when it comes to agriculture, aviation. We've talked about potentially the Tyson plant. That one didn't work out, but more may be coming. But not only making those industries healthy, but finding other alternatives for those types of industries, so that way we were kind of well-balanced. When one dips, then we actually have something else to hold ourselves up as well.
We need a governor who champions the economy, who champions Kansas. Again, that starts with ag and aviation and manufacturing. It really, truly does. And we need to be always thinking about how we can make those sectors of the economy grow and other parts of the economy so that we can achieve broader diversification. We can get more employment. We can have more people paying taxes and do better as an economy. Again, we have lagged the national average for a number of years now, and that makes a huge difference. We're unable to invest in things that we need to invest in, education, other issues. We need a focus on making Kansas grow, at least at the national average. We can talk about low commodity prices all day long, but we can step beyond that and figure out how we can make Kansas grow.
Oh, exactly. We definitely need that. Ken, what made you feel like at this time you said, you know what, I need to run for governor, I need to make a change, I need to fight this in the governorship?
We were asked to run for governor because people saw the good quality work and how we approach managing the insurance department. Several things have happened there that have really been noticeable. One was an outside third-party rating organization came in and rated all the insurance departments across the country. Kansas came in ranked the second highest in that study after we had reduced the number of employees, after we had reduced our costs, and got our people focused on serving the customers in Kansas. And that's all the Kansas citizens who have to buy insurance. So they liked the productivity. They liked our responsiveness. People saw that and wondered why we couldn't do that in the broader state government. We were asked to run because they saw how calm and thoughtful, strong leadership was provided in our department. So we're going to do the same thing in the broader state government.
When it comes to that leadership, and I agree, that's been something we've talked about on the radio, is I think that's something that we need in the state. And I not to say that we haven't had it per se, but especially in the legislature, I mean, we're lacking leadership right now with the direction on where we want to go, even within the Republican Party. Just the fact that we need a direction. Are we going to raise taxes? Are we going to cut our spending? Are we going to have a happy medium? What direction we're going to go? Because right now it feels like we're kind of right in the middle of the tug of war game.
We need leadership in the legislature, but that's not the only part. We can look at CanCare and saw the really big fumbles we had as a state in implementing CanCare. We need somebody to manage the ideology once it's implemented. We need somebody who will think about managing it and making it work better for Kansans. Even the legislature turned down the opportunity to expand Medicaid this time, to add cost to it. We need some leadership there who will make it work good for Kansans on a day-to-day basis. It's just not working like it should, and it's a huge part of our state cost, and we need to focus on managing that better.
That's true. Let's talk about some of those issues. And first off, like you mentioned with Medicaid, the Medicaid expansion, there's been the debate between the CanCare 2.0 to improve the system as opposed to Medicaid expansion and growing it to allow more people to enroll on it. What's your take on the position right now?
We probably need the 2.0, but again, it was 1.0 was so poorly managed that legislatures did not want to go along with it and did not want to support it. We need somebody who wants to manage that on a day-to-day basis that's more cost-effective and works better for our customers here in Kansas. For example, the sign-up process on Medicaid is a disaster. That can be managed a lot better. All the rules around it can be managed a lot better. We turn it over to a third-party outside firm, and we think we don't need to manage those outside contractors to benefit Kansans. Sure. We can focus on that. We will focus on that. And that's only one example. There's cost savings in a number of other places in our state. We have $1.1 billion in KDOT funding that needs better management so that we can get more efficiencies out of it. Our correction systems has huge issues. Department of Children and Family Services, other social services agencies, sure, they need to be managed better.
Right there, that could cut a heck of a lot of costs out of our state government by itself. What about, of course, we got to bring it up, the biggest issue, and right now the state legislature is debating on it right now, but the increase in spending with education funding as opposed to trying to limit the power of the Supreme Court with a constitutional amendment. What's the next step, or what's the direction that we should be headed for when it comes to educational funding in the state?
I think every Kansan, including pro-education people, want more accountability in education. That is the biggest single chunk of our state budget. There's all kinds of fences around it. The Constitution, you name the fences that have been erected around the state funding of education. But we can demand more accountability. For example, last session, when they put in $300 million of additional funding to reduce the 25% underperformers on average in every school district, there was very little accountability to actually reduce that number for that additional funding. You'll get the additional funding regardless of whether that number increases or decreases. How absurd is that? We need more accountability in the funding that we put into it this year. There have been some feeble attempts, but we haven't had a governor who's got out front and tried to champion the concept of accountability from top to bottom in government, including in education.
As you mentioned, accountability, because it's kind of the ongoing theme, and I like the fact that we're seeing accountability. Is there a way that we can make the Supreme Court a little more accountable? Is it maybe the way we nominate Supreme Court justices, or we actually vote for them to actually get into office? Is it we try and start redefining what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do when it comes to the power of the purse between them and the state legislature? How can we start reining in the Supreme Court a little bit?
I think people of Kansas ought to be given the opportunity to vote on whether or not they want more definition around the word suitability that has been in our Constitution since 1966. We need to better define that. It's my understanding we're short a number of votes in the House, so it may not pass. I would be a champion of that. We need somebody out there talking about it to give Kansans the opportunity to vote on it up or down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Last question before we let you go. We're talking with Ken Selzer, current insurance commissioner for the state of Kansas, also a Republican candidate for the governorship 2018. And I've heard you mention this in a lot of the different public forums and a couple of the debates as well. But when we talk about working with higher education and then going along with to tie it back in with some of the job growth and economic growth in the state, how can we get, from your perspective, some of the growth or maybe the workings together and communication between the higher education systems and in the workforce to make sure that we're training the right people to do the right things for the work that we need?
We're advocating that we can develop more public-private partnerships, and it works like this. For example, in the insurance department, we saw a real need for people coming out of college and universities and even the community colleges with more insurance knowledge. So we developed an insurance certificate that is funded by industry. It's funded by industry. That's an important point. It's a good example of public-private partnerships that we can develop around the state. For example, some tech schools around Kansas are doing a really good job in bringing in outside vendors, outside businesses to help them teach technical classes where their graduates can go out and get a $50,000 or $60,000 job. We need a governor who is a champion of education in demanding accountability throughout and aligning outcomes from education that will serve local community needs in their businesses. Kansas will grow if we have employees that are trained right, who are available to work. We're strangled now by a lack of workers in a lot of communities, including here in Sedgwick County. We need to make Kansas grow. That means more workers that are trained appropriately and trained for the jobs that are available. We have some really good examples throughout Kansas. I am so proud of what I see in some places in Kansas. We need some communication. We need to champion best practices. We need a governor who is out championing Kansas and making Kansas grow. We're going to lean in on costs. Leaning in on costs is the other half of the equation. We have to have somebody who is thinking about more productivity, more efficiency all day long, reducing costs, and making Kansas grow.
Making Kansas grow. Ken Selzer, I love it. You're in Wichita and the surrounding area here today. What's the next plan for the next few days on the campaign trail?
I'll be in Topeka for a couple of days after this and then back out on the road again. We are out talking to Kansans as much as we possibly can. We have an interest in ag, so we visit with a lot of Farm Bureau boards, a lot of Kansas Livestock Association boards.
Sure.
We're talking to a number of people in the ag sector. We're talking to a number of people in the manufacturing sector, the service sector. We're going to focus on making Kansas grow while we reduce costs, just like we did in the insurance department. We've proven we can make it work in the private sector. We've proven we can make it work in the public sector. What a wonderful blend of experiences to have in your next governor.
No doubt. No, if people want to help out, if people want to connect with you, reach out to help out with the campaign, or just ask some questions, how can they do so?
Come look for us on Facebook or look for us at kansasforseltzer.com.
kansasforseltzer.com. Very good. Well, good luck to you, my friend. We got to get you on again here real soon as we get closer and closer to the primary. It's going to come up before we know it. So I appreciate you coming in. We'd love to chat again soon.
Thank you, Andy.
There it is, Ken Selzer, Kansas Insurance Commissioner, also Republican candidate for the governor's race 2018. We appreciate him coming on the show, and we'll get him back on. We'll get all the candidates back on again very soon. I'd like to start doing about a monthly update from them on the campaign trail as we talk about what's happening in the state and what the priorities are on the campaign trail, what you're hearing and what they're hearing at the meetings, and where we're going to be when it comes to the primary race coming up very, very soon. Let's take a break. 22 minutes past the hour. We'll get your thoughts and calls when we come back. It's Open Line CU Plus. I have teased this for a while. I have not been able to talk about it. Today we're going to do so. The cry closets in universities, along with the latest study that Mike Gallagher's been talking about as well, but the masculinity being a mental health issue. We'll talk about all that and more as we wrap up the show today on a Tuesday. It's a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday right here on The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
All right, welcome back into The Voice of Reason, 28 minutes past the hour. We got a couple minutes to the bottom of the hour. Thanks again to Ken Selzer, Insurance Commissioner, also candidate for the governor's race for the GOP, swinging by the studio. We'll get all the candidates back on again, along with other candidates, by the way. I met a couple weeks ago at the KSRA, the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting in Lenexa. I got to meet most of the candidates, I believe, for the 2nd Congressional District. And I know we don't necessarily go into that area too terribly much, but at the same time, it is important for us to know who's representing across the entire state. So we'll chat with some of those candidates, along with we will be getting into the midterm elections and talking with some of the state legislators running for seats as well. So all of that coming up on the show in the next few weeks. Stay tuned in and don't miss that. I was over the break, as the study is, and we'll talk about this coming up after the bottom of the hour. According to the Counseling and Mental Health Center at the University of Texas at Austin, they launched a new program to help male students, quote, take control over their gender identity and develop a healthy sense of masculinity, because over excessive masculinity is a mental health disorder, according to the University of Texas with the Counseling and Mental Health Center. Masculinity being too bad. So, trying to take control over their gender identity and develop a healthy sense of masculinity. They found, along with that, a link of 20 questions to ask about whether you are an alpha male or a beta male. I took that quiz over the break. We'll talk about that when we come back. Apparently, they would not like me at the university very much. Joy. That's all right. I don't want to be there anyways. Bottom of the hour news coming up. We'll talk about that and more when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
Are you a Hoosier-holic?
Yeah, baby.
Call in now at 721-8255. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, that's what it's all about. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. It's open lines to you today for the last bit of the show. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. Here's the latest study from the University of Texas. If I can bring it back up without the ads on here. The Counseling and Mental Health Center at the University of Texas in Austin recently launched a new program to help male students take control over their gender identity and develop a healthy sense of masculinity. Now, if you remember, about a year or so ago, we had the masculinity confession booths at many universities. If you remember that.
A university will be hosting a masculinity confession booth along with a number of other workshops and screenings to combat hypermasculinity. We have all reinforced hypermasculinity one way or another, regardless of our gender, explains the University of Regina event description. Come and share your sins so we can begin to discuss how to identify and change our ways. The Man Up Against Violence initiative will be hosting these events at the University of Regina in Canada during the present week. The Masculinity Confession booth will be making its debut Monday, but is also listed on the schedule for Tuesday and Thursday, days on which students can also attend a Healthy Relationships and Healthy Masculinity workshop. Yet another event will seek to redefine the phrase man up. At the Man Up Against Violence initiative, we challenge mindsets and behaviors with regard to the social construction of masculinity and its relationship with violence. Details the Who We Are part of the site. We work together to bring light to the causes of all types of violence related to gender, race, socioeconomic status, ability level, and beyond. Man Up Against Violence aims to reduce violence, but also challenges social norms surrounding masculinity. The group's introductory video criticizes the stereotypical view of men as macho and unemotional, linking this to spousal abuse by asserting that men have violent outbursts as a result of pent-up emotions.
There you are. All right, so this was during the week, and this was about a year or so ago when we pulled that audio and had to pull that one out of the archives with this discussion. This was during a week when they were trying to fight, of course, the rape culture or abuse, which I get it. I mean, we don't want abuse, obviously. The problem is, though, is that they link abuse of men abusing women to masculinity, when that has nothing to do with masculinity. It's by you wanting to abuse your wife or abuse your girlfriend or abuse a random woman just because of the fact that you feel that you need to, that does not make you masculine. And we need to get back to defining what exactly we're meaning when we talk about trying to stop something, because you're trying to generalize the entire fact that because you have a masculine man, then all of a sudden you are prone to potentially beating your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, because you're trying to impose your masculine whims over her and trying to dominate and that sort of thing. And that's not the case. If you beat your wife or your girlfriend, then you're just a jerk that needs your butt kicked. And that's really what it comes down to. And I tell you what, there are a few things that gets me infuriated more than usual. It gets me from 0 to 60, and that is, number one, idiot drivers on the road who do stupid things, and then people who abuse women and children. And there's a special place in hell for them, in my personal opinion, because I'm not a fan of that in any way, shape, or form. And if I could, I would love to be able to stop any of that, because it breaks my heart. It infuriates me beyond belief, and that is not masculinity in any way, shape, or form. But the progressives have done a very good job of being able to label any type of attacker, any type of womanizer, any type of person, a man who tries to attack or abuse in any way, shape, or form is by extreme masculinity. So the University of Texas plays right into this, and with their counseling and mental health center, has come out with the study and saying that we need to take care of our masculinity and take control over our gender identity, so that way we can stop the ultra masculinity. Treating masculinity as if it were a mental health crisis. Masculine UT is organized by the school's counseling staff, and most recently organized by a poster series encouraging students to develop a healthy model of masculinity. The program's predicated on a critique of so-called restrictive masculinity. Men, the program argues, suffer what they are told to act like a man, or when they are encouraged to fulfill traditional gender roles such as being successful or the breadwinner. Wait, so being a successful man by working up the corporate ladder, working every day, busting your hump, whether you're a man or a woman, by the way, but working and being successful, that is encouraging traditional gender roles. Men, you're no longer allowed to be successful. Men, you're no longer allowed to be to feel the responsibility of being a man, to be the breadwinner, to take care of your family because you work really hard and you want to provide for your family, because that's your natural instinct as a man. But we don't talk about that anymore, because we need to be comfortable with our gender, and our gender needs to be a little more non-so-gender-ish. We need to not be a gender. We need to not be men or women. We just need to be whatever. And they have a study. They did a 20-question study about your masculinity and whether you're an alpha male or a beta male. And I think it's time that we play this. We haven't done it in a while.
It's your Pinko Flaming Commie Corner.
Yeah, pretty much. And as I did this over the break, it's a simple 20 questions. And let's see what we come up with here. Questions. Let me go back up to the top, and I can kind of read through some of the questions as we go along. It was 20 questions. I got 18 out of the 20, which, according to them, says that I'm a super alpha male. And I'll tell you the ones that I didn't get, so that way you can kind of see. Number 2, do you prefer to let others make choices for you? That would be, no, actually, I did not lose that one. Coming down to, let's see if I can find these. Number 4 was, have you ever been in a job where you might have been violent or alternatively making a life or death decision, like a soldier, cop, fireman, bouncer, UFC fighter, pro football player, etc.? No, I have not. So I guess Does that really make me non-alpha male, I guess? I guess it does, kind of to some degree. I talk on the radio. I don't beat people up for a living. I'll have to work on that one. My bad. There was let's see if I can find the other one here. There's a few interesting questions on here. I thought if I kind of found it interesting. One of them I didn't even know how to answer. It was some type of, do you like being in front of people and having them look up to you? I guess. I'm a radio host. People listen to me, but I don't know if I necessarily do it for that reason. So, but getting 18 out of the 20, definitely an alpha male. They would not like me. I need to apparently look at and go confess my sins of being extremely masculine with my masculinity and my awesome masculinity, so that way I don't get in trouble. And what we really need to do is go to the University of Utah, where they now have their cry closets. All students at the University of Utah feeling the pangs of educational misery, they now have the cry closets. PhD student Jackie Larson first noticed the sobbing chambers at the university library. She tweeted the photos of the standalone room, which is revealed of just a makeshift closet with stuffed animals inside. Oh, yes, stuffed animals inside. This is a university, mind you, with college-age students going into the closet and crying for 10 minutes, holding onto a stuffed animal, because the traumatization of going to a class and doing your studies is a very, very difficult thing to be able to get through. She tweeted photos of the standalone room, which is really just a makeshift closet with stuffed animals inside. Its stated purpose is to give students a break from studying from their final exams. If they need a forgiving environment to emote a curse the day they decided to major in organic chemistry, that's definitely the room for them. A sign on the door calls it a safe space for stressed out students, otherwise known as the Cry Closet. The sign displays a few ground rules, which are listed in the bullet points. Number 1, knock before entering. It's like a toilet. Only one person in the closet at a room. Can't be stuffing yourselves in there crying as a group. Sorry. Limit your time in the closet to no more than 10 minutes. You can only be a baby for 10 minutes at a time. Then you need to move on. Move along, sir, or ma'am, or other. Turn lights and timer off before leaving. Use hashtag CryCloset, CryCloset U of you if posted on social media. Hashtag CryCloset U of you, the letter U, CryCloset U of you. So if you go there, you can hashtag it, and then you can have your community on Twitter about everybody that uses the Cry Closet. Since posting your photos earlier this week, Larson tweeted, sparked some rage. Not very many people happy about it. There are so many people in the thread that sound like they need a good cry. The Cry Closet needs one more sign on it. Abandon all hope of employment, ye who enter here. Well, that's about accurate. So there you go. Now we're concerned about too much masculinity in society, and now it's not only just bad, but it's a mental health disorder. If you remember, I've not done it in a while because I've tried to be healthy-ish, but I used to come in with energy drinks every morning because 6 a.m. is really early. And the study came out about a year ago, too, about how energy drinks were promoting masculinity because you promote individuals to go to extremes and trying to be adventurers and trying to be rock climbers and runners and trying to be all this extreme active stuff. And that is promoting masculinity to try and, do crazy things. So, I've stopped that. Now I just need to go to the confession booth and confess my sins about masculinity. Your thoughts on all this and more. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Are you too masculine? And would you go to the Cry Closet because you're at university and you have a very tough time with your studies, and final exams are around the corner, the semester's about ready to end in the next month or so, and now you just need a good cry so that way you can actually get through the day, because it's a very difficult thing. Let's go to the phones here while I try and clean up my tears here. Good morning. What's your name?
Wow, Andy. Good morning. This is Nick.
Nick, what's going on, my friend? Excuse me for a minute.
I
need, hold on here. I need my my terrifying music, and I need to wipe my tears away because I'm trying to confess my sins of masculinity, and I'm just not making it, Nick.
All right. Well, listen up. One of the first questions that I ask somebody if we get to a topic about politics or religion, and they are not in the conservative mindset, is I ask them how they were brought up. What was their mother and their father like? Did their father discipline them with love, or they just slap them over the head and not give them a hug afterwards or whatever?
Sure.
And so it was a nice segue into this whole Adoption Protection Act that we're all talking about, House Bill 2481, and how some agencies should be able to deny certain people, or can, based on their deeply held religious beliefs. So when you look at the empathy aspect and say, well, what is this person, how is this person formed and looking through their eyes of how the world, did their mom and dad teach them that there was no gender differences? Did their mom and dad teach them, I'll say, I tell my sons, if they get a little boo-boo, to rub some dirt in it and get up.
Exactly.
If they're truly injured, I'm going to come alongside them and protect them and love them and do what I need to do to show them that they're worth and they have value.
But you're not going to make it over dramatic when they fall and skin their knee and they're fighting. You know what? Get up, get back on the bike, get back on the horse, and, do it all over again. That's just a battle scar and you're going to be proud of it. I mean, but there's a difference between that and then, them actually breaking an arm sort of thing.
Absolutely. And so you're dealing with two different sides of the coin. One, you got the extreme people that want to just find that mob mentality and go after the easiest low-hanging fruit. And then you got the real men that get on their knees. And if they have sins to confess, they do that, but not in the way that it's proposed by the liberals and the progressive liberals, I guess it was.
Sure. That's a really great point, Nick. I love that. I appreciate it. That's a great story, and you're right. I mean, I'm right there with you. You can always tell, by the way, with children, you can always tell by how they cry when they fall down, kind of the severity of it. You can always kind of tell, and I always do that. My 3-year-old, I mean, obviously she falls down a lot. She's outside running around. She's playing on the swing set. She's doing her thing, or she's running inside. And she always likes to wear these. She's going to be a dancer, by the way. She always wears these tap dancing shoes with the metal on the heel and on the toe. And she's running around the wood floor, and she slips and falls a lot. And I always wait before I react. I always listen to the cry on how she cries, because then you can tell whether it's a severe one and she really fell and hurt herself, or whether it was just more of a shock and awe kind of thing and she kind of stunned herself and she got a little boo-boo and she's back up and at it. Because I will not baby her because she got a little scratch. Ain't gonna happen. She comes to me, Dad, I got a scratch. I'm like, cool, you got a battle scar, I want to see. And then she takes away the whole sadness part. She's like, ooh, looky. And she's all happy. I'm not going to baby him. I don't care. She's 3 years old. I'm still not going to baby her. Not going to happen. And we need to get back to that. She's going to be more manly, unfortunately, than many men in her generation if we continue on with this whole masculinity identity crisis. And the fact that we're concerned about an identity, about the gender and the whole gender identity thing, can you believe that we've forgotten the fact that if you can look just, at your body parts, what kind of gender you actually are? It's really crazy, isn't it? It boggles the mind that we've had millions of years of evolution, if you believe in that sort of thing, or if you believe in natural selection, or you believe in part of the animal kingdom, and the fact that we don't have two genders that have been allowed us to reproduce and continue on for years and years and years. And now all of a sudden we have to question all of that because it's never been true. It's unbelievable, the ridiculousness here. But we have too much masculinity and we need to cry in the cry closet. So I'm going to go back to my closet. Let's go back to the phones here, and while someone else takes over for a second, I need to confess my sins again because I just, released a little bit too much masculinity with that last segment. Line number 2, good morning. What's your name?
I'm a Hoosier Hollis.
Hey, what's going on, Paul?
Hey, about this Austin University.
Uh-huh.
The way you reported it, I haven't actually, this is the first I've heard of it, and I haven't looked it up yet, but the way you refer to it, it seems incredibly obvious to me about what they're talking about, whether they know it or not, is what we call machoism.
Okay. Is there a problem with being macho?
Yes, there is, because it's a product of human ego.
What's wrong with that? Everybody's got an ego a little bit. That's I don't know if you're aware or not, but that's what actually leads to most females being attracted to you. Is you got to be macho. If you look in the animal kingdom, the majority of animals, the men or the male have to fight each other to be able to win over the female, and then she takes whichever the winner is. Ego and machoism is kind of part of our DNA and how we actually survive as a human race.
The ego is that voice that's constantly in your head interpreting for you based on what knowledge you have, whatever logic the brain's trying to draw from current reality. And ego modifies that, and it's a self-preservation tactic. that is still necessary today, but in the example you use, is not really, as far as when and a woman, it's not really necessary in today's world.
Really?
It's like a caveman mentality.
Wait a second. We don't need. No, I get, and I agree with you in the sense that a lot of people have too much of an ego and it drives you nuts, and you got to bring them down a few pegs. And I'm totally in agreement with that, because sometimes they have too much of an ego to where they think that they can do no wrong. And I'm not a fan of those types of people. And that, of course, brings out the machoism in others to try and bring them down a peg. And that's good. And I think that we have that happy balance, because we always try and challenge and test ourselves along with testing others when they get a little too big for their britches. So I'm with you on that one. But when it comes to the showing off for the women, I mean, yeah, that's still there. Come on. I mean, when a woman has the choice and she looks at either a guy who sits in the corner and is kind of is shy and doesn't really do anything and just kind of isn't very out there, or you have the football star that's out there and the super rock star that makes a lot of money. I mean, come on, which one do you think the female is going to go towards? Of course you have an ego and a little bit of machoism, and you puff your chest out a little bit in order to try and impress the woman and gain her attention. That still works even in today's times.
Please say something.
I don't know if I heard your phone was a little bad there, Paul. We got to take a break anyways. Interesting concept on it. But yeah, machoism's still there. It's not a bad thing. You very much need it. It's very much still the test of being able to try and win the attention of a female. Some think that you're kind of a jerk when you do it, but sometimes, guess what? They still go for the bad boys, don't they? It's crazy. They still go for the bad boys, and that machoism is still there. So being able to confess your sins because of masculinity and now being a mental health disorder, we've continued to try and take away and attack masculinity and men, yes, men as a gender, because of the fact that some of them try and puff out their chest and to impress and try and have a little competition running through their bloods, which I see no problem about whatsoever. This is The Voice of Reason. Got some more calls on the line. Stay here. We'll get to you. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Wrapping up the show today, I'm going to have to go to my cry closet in just a little bit because I have been emotionally distraught throughout the most of the day. We got about a minute before we wrap up the show, but let's try and sneak in one more phone call here. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
What's going on, Helen?
Well, I want you to be rest assured that the Lord God says that He it prefers alpha males and females.
See?
In Deuteronomy 20, He says, in verse 8, and the officers, which is when you're going to war, the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, what man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Basically cowardly. Let him go and return home unto his house, lest his brethren heart as well as his heart fainteth. So if God can't use cowards.
Nope. You're right. I mean, we can't be weaklings. We can't be cowards. I appreciate that, Helen. You're right. So you know what? I'm going to go home and I'm going to smoke a cigar and have a glass of scotch and kiss my wife and enjoy my masculinity and probably go on some crazy adventure. Why? Because I'm a guy and I'm not afraid of my gender that apparently offends you. I don't care.